Yeah, 2, 3, 4. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Make it rock, yeah. Yeah, 2, 3, 4. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode in Gradon Aspire, where we have a number of exciting career initiatives lined up, including webinars happening every day throughout 24th to 27 October. Today, we're going to talk a bit about the pros and cons of a virtual career, I think the pandemic has sparked a new term of virtual career, and so we'll find out today about what it actually is and how is it actually being used. So virtual office jobs and telecommuting positions are becoming increasingly common these days. Some may view that the conventional office as unnecessary for many businesses, because I do know some organizations asking their full-time staff to work from home from now. And what are the prospects of a virtual career, and whether corporate Malaysia is ready for something like that. Today, we are privileged to have our interesting panel of speakers. Let me introduce you to Safinas Mama Ibrahim, who is the Chief People Officer of AXA Affin General Insurance. Hi, Safinas.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
We have Nigel Tan, who is the Head of Technology of Citi Malaysia.
Hi, hello everyone.
Chua Tai Ping, HR Director and Countryside Leader of Experience.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
And Zaim Chan, who is the Human Resources Director of tdcx.
Hi everyone, good afternoon.
Before we start, I actually would like to let you introduce yourselves a bit to the audience, and maybe you can share a bit about what you do in your organization. Maybe Zaim, you can start.
Okay, good evening everyone again. My name is Zaim Chan. I'm actually the HR Director for tdcx Malaysia. I think some of you may have heard of Chige. Chige now is at the EVP group level. So my role is actually to head the HR for Malaysia and to partner closely with my stakeholders, who is one of the critical stakeholders I have is Byron. He's the EVP for Malaysia, India, and the group CIO as well. So in the recent times when I joined tdcx Malaysia on 2nd of March, just 2 weeks before the lockdown.
Oh, wow.
So it's very interesting. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin announced that within the 18 midnight, we'll start the lockdown, and it was a rush, and it was a contingency that we all of us have to arrange, like almost 95% of our workforce to work from home. So that's the beginning of the work from home for the entire organization.
You would be the perfect example to share about virtual career in tdcx, actually. What about Nigel? Maybe you can share a bit about what what you do at Citi.
Sure, I'm Nigel. I'm the Country Technology Head for Citibank Malaysia. So I'm part of the team that's responsible for the infrastructure as well as the technology deliverables in the country. So as you can understand, for the past 7 months since lockdown, we were really kept at our toes in terms of enabling a lot of our staff to work from home and also be able to stay safe at home while being productive at the same time. So yeah, the last 7 months has been a very interesting activity exercise for us, especially in the technology sector. So it's been keeping us awake day and night, just to make sure that everything is running out smoothly so that everyone can stay safe at home and still be productive.
Okay. Safinas?
Hi, I'm Shafinas. I'm the Chief People Officer for the AXA Affin General Insurance. I'm new with the company, but not to say new lah. It is a returning home actually. I was with AXA Affin General Insurance back in 2015, and then moved to regional role. So I guess when you talk about virtual career, it is very close to my heart, because when I was working in a regional role, my bosses are in Madrid, because our regional office is in Madrid, and I am based in Malaysia.
Yeah.
And after regional role, I moved to AXA Affin Life Insurance as the Chief Human Resource Officer. 1 year plus there, and now back to AXA Affin General Insurance, back to home where I started. So basically my role is in terms of people and culture related. How can we partner with the business, supporting the people to grow? And general context about AXA, we are the largest global insurance company based in Paris. In the context of AXA Malaysia, we are the third largest general insurance, among the first insurance that has implemented various people-related initiatives, flagship people-related initiative, including robotic process automation, and won several or various local and international recognition, including the 2019 Grand Award for Employee of Choice from MHRM.
Okay, Chai Ping, maybe you can share a little bit about what you do.
Thanks, Nada. Hi, everyone. I'm Chai Ping. So I work for Experian. I'm the HR Director as well as the site leader. And we have 1,000 employees in Malaysia now. So just as what Zaim and Safinas and Nigel were saying before, in March overnight, we all had to go virtual. And the good thing was we've always been promoting flexibility and flexible work arrangements, but overnight, right, the entire workforce, right, had to work from home. And that really, brought me back to 10 years ago when the country, through Talent Corp, and when we were doing so much work for Talent Corp at the beginning of it, when we wanted to promote flexibility, flexible work arrangements. In those days, there was so much resistance.
Yeah.
But when an unknown visitor came or an unseen visitor came overnight, right, we had no choice but to leap on that digital transformation. So just on digital, work very closely with my IT team to make sure that there's no disruption to the business. And as a HR director as well, I think overnight, like many HR professionals, right, we were thrown into a bit of a yo-yo, a bit of a roller coaster, and we really had to very quickly learn up, right, at least from my own perspective, about what well-being, for example, or what chemicals, right, would be important. BCP, business continuity planning, right, was never as real as when COVID hit us, right? So I think overnight we were all part of that process, but more so, right, I think for a HR person to be even more entrenched in that whole transformation overnight to make sure that all our employees are safe and well, right? And then during that process as well, we really had to start playing a psychologist role, a psychiatrist role to some extent, to start understanding not just engagement in the past. We talk about engagement, but now looking forward, right? We need to start understanding what mental well-being is, right? So that we can help our employees through this very sudden and stark transformation, right? So I think, again, now more than ever before, leader in any capacity, but especially HR, we really have to be very attuned to the pulse of the business and the pulse of our people. So, so I carry two hats. One is HR and one is a business one. So I think very quickly, right, I had to pivot myself as well, and also transform and adapt to now no longer called new normal. It's already pretty normal after 7-8 months, right?
Yeah.
So thanks, Nada.
No problems. Zaim, I'm going to start with you. So a lot of us had to take our careers virtually during the lockdown. I'm sure you can relate to that. What did you learn about, virtual careers during your experience? And basically, how will you incorporate what you've learned into your daily working life today? Because on top of managing yourself, you also had to manage a whole team or organization, right? So, maybe you can
Okay.
share a bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting for myself. I work with, before I joined TDCX, I worked for across global multinational, which work from home was a norm for me. But for TDCX, because if you don't TDCX in the early days, we're called direct telecommerce. So we are a telemarketing company that sell products for maybe Citibank or maybe the insurance company like AIA and so on. But over the last 6 years in Malaysia and as a group, we have grown to about 10,000 employees, and in Malaysia alone, we have 3,125 today. So imagine, like, moving 3,000 old people to work from home overnight was a big challenge for us, and we did it seamlessly. And along the way, like the last 7-8 months, right? Personally, I learned a few key points as well, how to work across this new norm, or now what Chai Peng say is already the norm for the last 7 months. And we have learned a lot of things. We need to ensure that, for example, our internet bandwidth is stable, not only for us ourselves at home, but also across our employees as well, right? To make sure that they have the infrastructure. We have to make sure that everybody has for example, sign a work from office home agreement, and data privacy, confidentiality. So this is from the company perspective, right? In terms of preparing ourselves. And personally, I think I've seen a tremendous move from TDCX in terms of where we work from home. We look at all the programs that we support our customer across all our different accounts, right? Because we actually have many, many different global clients. For example, Google, who is the global internet leader, Samsung Electronics, and we manage their customer experience and sales journey, for example. But what we realized that what we have learned is that even though we work from home, our productivity continue to sustain and even beyond the normal KPI that we achieve when we were working in the office. So I think it's like what Chai Peng also just said just now, right? There were a lot of resistance in the past in the company, and we only implemented 1 day work from home in a month, but it become like
Is it
quite a permanent kind of thing already now. So that's just a bit of sharing on my side on TDCX as well on personal front.
okay? Shafinas, do you think it's a pro or a con? Like, what would you say are the benefits of having a virtual career? And maybe we can touch on some disadvantages and weigh them across.
Okay. To be honest with you, implementation of a virtual career, it is all depends on the company itself. Yeah, whether I mean in terms of your readiness, in terms of your nature of business, and there is no one size fits all, and it is all depends on whether you want to be optimistic or pessimistic. I mean, if you want to be pessimistic, whatever you think that can be wrong will go wrong. Okay, and if you talk about benefits, benefits that I can think of is for AXA, we believe in empowerment. Yeah, we believe empower people to be their best, do their best anywhere that they can be productive. So one of the key advantage or pros on virtual career. And other pros that I can think of is you promote as an inclusive company that supports employee in the process of achieving their personal and also professional goals. And it enhances business continuity as virtual career as less likely to be affected by incidents that could prevent employees from going to office, either it is on COVID ke, or any other pandemic outbreaks. And I also believe that it promotes higher productivity, yeah, with employee satisfaction. As a quote from Richard Branson, happy employees will lead to happy customers. And last but not least, probably on the potential cost saving on office rental. And if you talk about disadvantage, I won't say it as a disadvantage. I would look at it probably more towards the challenges of implementing it. And of course there would be a needs for investment in terms of technology, preparation on people side, other your people managers maturity in terms of the way we evaluate performance, the way we empower people. It is a journey. To me, it is a journey. You definitely have a challenges, but that is the future. That is the future that everyone should venture in.
So Shafina's mentioned technology, so I'm going to bring Nigel in right now. So Nigel, how can one best utilize technology to make their virtual career a success? Are there any tips that maybe you can share?
Yeah, sure. I think, as the panelist has mentioned, right, every organization have some form of technology in place to help with a virtual career, right? So from my personal experience, I think the best advice is to use it, embrace it, make mistakes with it, learn, and then you will basically be able to, get into the groove of using this technology. There are lots of technologies out there that will help with a virtual career, right? Everyone has their capabilities. Every organization have their own solutions. Ultimately, it's up to the employees with their right mindset to use them, right? I think we are very fortunate. We've been, we're no different. Citibank, we have the technology available to help people work from home. But pre-global pandemic, it was, once a week, once a month. So now with this global pandemic, I think we had an opportunity to really stress test it, right? Work from home for 7 months, and that's something that is unheard of. I think at the end of the day is my best advice is embrace it, use it, right? Make mistakes with it, that's fine, right? But from mistakes, you learn how to use it better the next time around.
Yeah. Chirping, nowadays there's a lot of organizations that are introducing virtual internships or even a virtual full-time role. So maybe you could share some advice for an individual of certain things that they should be aware of before accepting to go full virtual, or some things about that would help them realize the potential in that, basically.
I think whether you're an intern or a full-time employee or a contractor, right? I think the virtual world is here to stay, right? Given just so many circumstances that are surrounding us, right? I mean, COVID or not, I mean, it probably makes business sense. I think there's just so much literature, right? Talking about stats, right? Talking about why that flexibility, why women need to come back to the workforce and so on and so forth, right? So I think, I think as just what the esteemed panelists were saying, I think the pros and cons are there, right? But we really need to play up the pros. And if I think about a virtual setup, right? Now again, more than ever before, leaders got to, we talk about virtual intelligence, right? And how our workforce, our employees got to be more equipped, more savvy with technology and so on. So that's virtual intelligence. But the other side of the coin is really, what about virtual empathy, right? So leaders like ourselves, right, and managers, right? How do we wrap our hands around our people to make sure that they are virtually engaged as well? Because without a face-to-face or a less face-to-face setup, it's going to be difficult, right? So I think virtual intelligence, virtual versus virtual empathy, I think that's one aspect of it. So anyone pursuing a virtual career, right, whether you're an intern or a full-time employee or a contractor for that matter, I think trust is important, trust both ways. And I think the outreach has to be even stronger, right? Because you don't get to go to an office, you can't, stand by the coffee machine in the office pantry or the water cooler in the office pantry anymore. And those things help, right? And at the end of the day, I think again, there's just so much articles and research to say that we are at the end of the day social beings. We can be cooped up at home, but if we get a chance to, I think it was just this morning that I read somewhere or heard over the news that if we get a chance, right, to say hello to the Grab delivery boy to pick up our parcel, we are also happy because we are just by nature social. So I think if we are in a virtual career, we really have to think about a few things, right? One, I think your setup at home. I think that's important. The other thing to think about is really about that digital divide. The digital divide, I mean, from just the last 7, 8 months now, people think that the digital divide is more apparent between urban and rural. But I really think that the digital divide, even if I think about school children today, urban children have it a bit better because the classes are online, right? I mean, Wi-Fi in certain areas, just in the Klang Valley, it can be a surprise, right? So I think we need to think about that as an employer, and then how do we support some of these employees? Hopefully, it's not so much of an issue in the Klang Valley or Greater KL, but employees outside of this, sorry, employers outside of this may want to think about that, because without proper infrastructure, technology, or Wi-Fi for that matter, it's going to be very difficult, right, to transition the workforce into a digital one. On the employee's perspective, I think it's important, like we are in Malaysia, we are technically, or practically Asians, right? And 3 generations, 4 generations work. So it's a multi-generational home front, right? We talk about a multi-generation workforce, but at home as well, right? I mean, it's not just us and the work only. I mean, what about the meals? What about supervising your kids' studies? You may have a grandmother at home and she may need, and you may be a secondary caregiver, right? How do you sort of juggle, right? And put all that, because like it or not, the future is going to be the office will come into your home. And then what about demarcation of, meal times, cooking time, right? Feeding your children time, right? And when do you go off? Because I think many of us now work way beyond after office hours, right? I think 10 p.m. is normal, 11 p.m. is normal, I see 1 a.m. So how then do we manage that? And longer, I think, into the future, we really, I think whether you're an employee or an employer, have to start thinking about mental health, because issues, right? Social issues, health issues will start creeping up. Yeah, so I think those are the few things that probably I've been thinking about, right, during COVID as well, and looking into the future. How do we as employers and as employee as well, as a mother, as a granddaughter, as a, daughter-in-law, how do you start balancing all that at home. Because at the end of the day, as I said, right, we are Asians, and there is that multi-generational factor at home as well, not just at work.
Yeah, I think balance is definitely key. So Zaim, like, taking from what Chaiping has shared, do you think Malaysia is ready for virtual careers? I know a lot of us are already going through it, but what is needed for someone? For example, I know it takes a lot of discipline, especially for someone starting out. For a lot of us, when we've started working, we know what is expected. We know how we need to deliver the culture. It's all built in already. So whether you're working at home or you're working at work, you're sort of you are on the same train. But for someone starting out, they don't have that pace. They don't know what is expected. Yeah, maybe we can expand a bit about that part.
Okay, I think this is quite relevant in TDCX as well because we hire young generation and millennials workforce, those who are just graduated, 23, 25 years old, and we hire people from 25 different nationalities. So now we have actually people onboarded in KL, people onboarded in Thailand, Philippines, and so on. And because of the lockdown of borders and the immigration policy of limiting people coming to the country, so we notice that more and more we have to actually train people to work from the respective sites. I just want to say that Malaysia is quite lucky that because TDCX has more than about 10 countries, we're quite lucky that our country infrastructure is a little bit already better off compared to countries like Philippines and Thailand, right? We have heard much more challenges in Philippines as well. And therefore, during the COVID-19 scenario, there are actually 3 clients that came on board with us without visiting our site. So this is one of the success that you want to share, not really relevant to the new starters. But for the new starters, I guess, being a young generation who just started the workforce, the tips is try to go to LinkedIn Learning, try to go and learn up, how to set up your home environment, keep your space clean, quiet away from your family members, and preferably in a room environment, quiet environment in a room with proper infrastructure, clean desks, and try to minimize distraction. See, these are some of the tips like that. We realize that what we face too when we are working from home, right? I myself personally, when I was working in the dining hall, suddenly I see my people in my house starting to walk around, being at the back of my background. And now we are quite fortunate we have a lot of virtual background to prevent that from happening, right? So this is just one of the tips as well for young starters. And I think for young starters is to know when to start work, when to take your lunch break, like what Chapeng was saying, right? Even though they are young, sometimes they may work and they forget, and they could be like socially trapped at home and not able to have lunch with your colleagues anymore, or to call them out for a chit chat over a coffee. So things are something different really, compared to even their university days, right, where they are really able to engage and meet up with each other, right? So since these are some of the tips and so on, and of course, when do you stop working, right? Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 7 o'clock? When to watch TV? If a lot of youngsters are not really careful, they may be even watching Netflix during the office hours. I'm not saying that we should not trust them. We should trust them. And this could be something that happened that will impact the productivity. I guess as leaders and so on, we should continue to coach and mentor as well the young starters. And of course, young starters should take the initiative to learn how to maintain productivity. And if we want our leaders to trust us from the beginning, trust is always given from the beginning unless it's breached, right? So in TDCX, same thing also. If we keep our productivity there, even though we are young starters, and I'm sure our leaders were happy that we are working virtual, our productivity can be even maintained or better or sustainable. So that's the perspective of sharing from my side.
Yeah, I think those are very important points. Shafinas, why do you think virtual careers are more popular? Like aside from COVID, what makes virtual careers possible? Like, for example, for you, like you said, you were reporting to someone in Madrid even before all of this happened.
Yeah.
Is Malaysia and the world of business already heading there? But it's just COVID just gave it a little nudge so that it's just accelerated things. Or yeah, maybe you can share a bit.
Okay. I believe all my esteemed panel is aware about this joke, famous joke in WhatsApp. Who expedite your your company digital transformation?
Which C did it, right?
Yeah. A CEO, B CPO, C is COVID. And the answer is COVID. I guess is the same answer for virtual career. let me give an example on in the context of AXA. Yeah, for AXA, people health and well-being will always come first. No matter what, people health and well-being will always come first. Okay, and with COVID at this point of time, with and without CMCO, more than 70% of our employees continue to work from home. And if you are looking at business continuity perspective, I guess we should look at what are the we should focus on areas that are within our control, which is our people and our process. We can never know what kind of virus or outbreak will be coming in soon, and we until now we have no idea when we are going to get vaccinations for COVID, right? So this new normal is, I guess, it's no longer new. So for AXA, what can we do is we act for human progress and protecting what matters, and that is our purpose, and we will always move towards that directions. It is always important for us to be a self-starter. Understand that sometimes looking at best practices, what other companies are doing is important, but I would say at this point of time, yeah, when COVID invaded us, we are more focusing on what is the best fit of our people, because you cannot just wait and learn from other companies what others are doing, copy, replicate. We have no time for that. So we just go forward, be a self-starter, try new things. Along the way, learn, tweak, and implement the necessary, make changes, do multiple communications. I would say, I guess, bi-weekly communications with the EXCO members, CEO, with the employees. We roll out our chatbot in order to you usually chatbot when you have problem you go to the chatbot, right? But this one we have hired a non-human working in human resource department, a chatbot who will reach out to our employees to get the sensing of our employees, how are they doing. We roll out I would say among all the initiatives that we do, we are focusing on three P's. Yeah, number one is on people. We look at what is the employees' well-being, that is including the mental health, enhancing resilience, and not to forget to create the fun activities. Yeah, continue to develop our people manager, especially in the area of emotional intelligence, because they are the bridge between the management and also the employees. When people leave, they leave their managers. It's not that they leave the HR or things like that. So the next context that we are looking at is in terms of process. The next piece, yeah, in terms of process, we redefine what would be the new ways of doing things, simplify certain things. It helps. COVID has helped us to expedite from digitization to digitalizations and simplification. And one of the initiatives that we are going to do, yeah, we are going to launch our robotic process RPA Academy, robotic process automation academy for all the employees, in order to focus on we let the employees focus on value add activities, what excites them, and let the robot do the all the less exciting work. And the next piece is we were focusing on performance, and it's about providing the relevant tools and platform in order to enable the employees to do their best and be their best. Continue to coach them, mentor, playbook, other relevant tips and guidance to the employees and also to the people managers.
It should continue, right? Regardless of what platform it's on, whether
Yes,
it's physical or now virtual.
you are right. You are right. So for companies, I would say for companies who probably previously believes in traditional setup, um, we should consider this as doing pilot in terms of moving towards the future of work or virtual career. Definitely it is necessary and relevant for us to invest in the technology and things like that. I'm sure companies have started to buy laptop, whatever dongle for Wi-Fi and things like that. That should continue, do it in phases, and we should continue to leverage on COVID situations, which has pushed us expedite our readiness for the future of work. We should leverage on it and take advantage of it and continue to progress.
True. Thank you so much, Shapina. So, Nigel, do you think that someone would be actually losing out on real work experience if, having a virtual career?
Well, I think if the way things are going when we're heading towards a knowledge economy, the largely workforce would be very much thrive on a virtual environment,
Yeah.
because you not only limit yourself to a local environment, you are now being able to market yourself to a regional, even global level scale, right? So I think, in fact, the opportunities are tremendous if you look at it from a virtual career. Of course, having said that, there are some industries which are not practical, that require hands-on. So those, you can't avoid that. But as you see where we're heading towards a knowledge economy, with more knowledge workers coming on board, I think the virtual gig will be something that will be very prevalent, and that will be the new normal, right? And that's where you will start marketing yourself, being able to learn new skills, and not just limit yourself within the country, but also open yourself up to the region and over the global scale as well.
We received a lot of questions in the chat box, but I'm going to ask one final question to Chai Ping and Zaim. Something on the lines about what would be the best way to make a virtual career work, basically from a standpoint of an individual and also an employer. Like how can we make this as fruitful as it is, for everyone?
I'll start, and then Zaim, please chime in, right? So for me, I think, the future is already here. Nigel alluded to it. The gig economy is here. And if I think about the gig economy, and if I think about my very long 20-year career, right, just how things have transformed, right? And obviously COVID has expedited it, as what Safinas was saying earlier, right? So what changed it? Is it a CEO, CTO, or not? Actually, it was COVID, right? I think we need to now, as I said earlier, pivot, right? But pivot very, very quickly. And again, what Nigel is saying, the opportunities, right, are in abundance, right? And therefore, if we change our own mindset, right? I mean, I am probably the most or the least tech savvy person, right? But overnight, again, I had to pivot very quickly. Although, when you go into the office, you always have help desks, next to you downstairs or someone to help you, but then you really have to get more independent, right? So I think that mindset shift is important. And if you're working from home or virtually, right, make sure that you've got, when I say mindset, because not just you have your own little space, because we have had also the many months that we've been working from home, we have had people who actually went into depression or very affected, right, by working from home. And the irony is this: before COVID, people would say, I want more flexibility. I want more flexibility. Now we get people like, telling us, I want to go back to the office, because I know for sure the office is much cleaner than our home, because we would have, deeply sanitized it and so on and so forth. You have followed all SOP. That's one. But more importantly, the environment is conducive, right? The office environment. So that's why I say, mentally and psychologically, if you're going to have a virtual career, you make sure that you are prepared for it, right? Because the demands are not going to be less on a virtual career, because some organizations say, should I install things in your computer so that people know whether you are working and all that? No, that will dilute trust completely, right? But there are apparently features like that where they put into the employees' laptops, right? And so that you can kind of monitor. So instead of the clock in, clock out, you monitor. I think that is not advised. So mindset is very important. Your own mental well-being, ergonomically. If you're in this for the long term, you really have to be set up for it, right? Virtually, because if you're not, you're gonna be disrupted, because you don't have the option. If it's a full-time virtual career for you, you won't have an option of going back to the office. For most of us today, we have the option, right? We can still go back to the office. So I think physically, ergonomically, and most importantly, mentally, and also what are the residents in your home, right? I think that's important. Over to you, Zaim. Thanks.
Thank you, Chai Ping. I think Chai Ping covered a lot of what is relevant, in the sharing today. So my focus now, I want to share a little bit more on how TDCX, because we were used to have before MCO days, we used to have a lot of engagement activities, right? Every other day, we have like because we have 25 nationalities, so we have Kimchi Day, we have Songkran Waster Festival, and all kind of activity. And then all these youngsters, they like all these type of fun activities, right? But when we locked down at home, so what else could we do? First, we started with virtual town hall. Then we have a Zumba at home, virtual, women network and virtual Toastmaster, virtual, everything is virtual, right? And we started toying out with trying like what Chai Ping was sharing just now. Mental breakdown is one of the worries that we have. And we also have employee assistance program for employee to reach out to psychologists to need help, or they can talk to their line manager or their HRBP and things like that, right? Um, and then we try to engage our employee, and we started rolling out things like gamertize app, where we keep our millennials go into an app, play and have fun, answer question, contest, journey, and so on. I think, and Shafinas may not be too happy about it. We also have AIA Vitality and so on. This competitor AXA more on the life side. So these are how we keep our employee engaged and so on. So that's more on trying to engage our employee on the virtual manner. And when we do certain launch on certain program, it's a mini people on site, and the rest of us will be on a broadcast, just like how we do this webinar broadcast. So we realized that all our leadership team has become like an actor and actress, broadcasting shows on TV, like on Astro, right, where we show it to all our employees, and we are hoping that more and more employees will take time off from their working schedule to attend all these activities. So this is just to share, from a lighter front, how we try to engage our employees to ensure to avoid the mental breakdown and things like that. And we are proud to say that we started the pilot of Gamertize app in Malaysia, and now it's being replicated to the other countries across Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, and so on as well. Yeah.
That's really impressive, by the way, the app to keep everyone engaged. Because I think what you did was knowing your people and
Yeah.
knowing what would, and understanding them and seeing that what would actually get them, into it. Because
Yeah.
there's no one size fits all. It doesn't mean that someone, if you use that app in another company, it will definitely work. No, it's because you've spent enough time with your team. You know that this is what they like. Because, like you said, they're millennials. Because the others will be like, oh no, we don't get our birthday lunches anymore, our team celebration, the little things. What happens to all of that? So yeah, it's good to know that you're actually doing something that's really, really cool. um, okay, straight to the chat box. So a lot of them are saying that are talking about miscommunication. So with virtual careers, and whether it's during discussions or anything like that, or whether an instruction has been conveyed, and there are misunderstandings, especially for the younger generation who might not know what is expected of them. So there's a mismatch there as well. Maybe Shafinas, you can share a bit about your experience in that area.
Okay, I learned one tips from the jungle. Credit to the jungle. Yeah, in any communication, we launched learning series for leaders recently, where the title of that learning series is communicate to empower. And tips given by the jungle is first, be clear on your intent, then talk about your content. So I guess in any communication, miscom, it will happen. Not necessarily it is virtual, whether it is at home, whether it is physically in the office, it will happen. I guess what's important is number one, the way we communicate virtually, we manage people, it's a bit different in terms of physical interactions. I guess via WhatsApp is not something that I would encourage. If let's say one of the tips, probably we can have a quick morning meeting with your team members, just to catch up on what are their priorities on that particular day, and what are the support that they would need from you, what would be your expectations on them. That would helps in terms of clarity of expectations. Yeah. um I mean, in terms of communication, I would prefer, despite we have this WhatsApp and whatever not, I would still prefer to have personalized conversations, having a quick chat, quick meeting that would be able to clear the air, instead of probably sometimes they are using jargon, short form that both of us are not familiar about it. So I guess conversations, quick meeting would help. If you ask me, that would be the best.
Nigel, I wanted to ask. So, right now, a lot of people are saying that virtual careers are at its peak. Shafina started it a few years ago, but right now almost everyone is having a virtual career, and we have organizations, launching virtual internships or virtual careers and things like that. Do you think, in a year or two, hopefully we've all forgotten about COVID and we can travel again and we can, go to all these nice things and all these pleasures of life? Do you think virtual careers will still be something that is in existence, or we will slowly, as humans you tend to go back to your natural behavior? Do you think we'll go back to that, or do you think things are forever changed, or the new normal, like what Chaiping was saying, there's no more new normal, this is it already? What do you think?
Well, I think based on my experience in the technology industry, they've already had a virtual career for quite some time. So this situation doesn't really change a lot. In fact, it re-emphasizes the capabilities you can achieve and the potential you can achieve, right? If you can onboard somebody from Philippines, right, to do the same job virtually, right? That's the opportunity there, not just for the organization, but for the individual. So likewise for Malaysian, you don't have to limit yourself to Malaysia, right? You don't have to be in Singapore to get a job in Singapore, for example, right? And I think that's where you will see a bigger trend, a pivot towards there, right? Granted that certain industries still require you to come back to office, still have the connection with people in office. That's not going to go away. So when things settle down, you start seeing people coming back, right? As the panelists mentioned, we're all social animals in one way or another. We need the interaction. That's going to come back, right? But for industries like technology, they've already started that cycle where they don't limit themselves to just resources within a country. They are able to get resources from India, Philippines, within the same time zone region, and be able to scale up as a result of that. So for those technology companies, as you can see, during this pandemic, they were like business as usual, right? It's just that people are staying home, right? And you're seeing that more frequently in the North America side, where people does not necessarily have to be in the same county, the same city, in order to provide the support, right? And that's just where things are heading, right? But of course, in the technology industry, you see that easier to achieve, right? But in other industries, it's just not possible. But one way or another, you see that results, whether they'll pivot towards that, right? And I think that's something important to note.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. So, Chaiping, I'm going to ask everyone the final question, actually. So, with what Nigel has mentioned, the fact that someone, in Philippines who is really, really good and expert in that field can be doing a role here, that has tremendously increased competition. And as a graduate right now, whether you're starting out or you actually middle management, just looking for what's happening outside, you want to look for career options. What does it take for someone to be outstanding anymore? Because it's just there's so much competition, and the pandemic is one thing. Companies are becoming a bit more sort of they're choosing the best for each role, basically, right? So how does an individual stand out? Any advice that you can share as well for our job seekers out there?
Thanks, Nada. I think, even the interview process, right, has changed, right? The requirements in that sense has changed as well, right? And what I mean by that is, I guess with the pandemic, right, it's also taught us to be even more selective, maybe, and also, to look at job fit even more stringently, right? And I recall having to do virtual interviews, right? At the moment the pandemic hit us, and I was like talking to my colleague, and I said, this is a bit unusual. because we've always been trained, right, to do a face to face, to look at body language and to look at culture fit and so on. um, and for the first time in my entire career, I've never been on so much video. I mean, honestly, I still remember March 18 until now, right? Every time I have to turn on my video, especially at the beginning, my hands would, my heart would palpitate, right? My hands would start shaking. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going on video.
You're an expert.
Well, today I have no choice. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so I have no choice. So when I had to do those virtual interviews, right? I remember speaking, we had an intern with us, and she did her internship with us virtually, literally virtually, right? We hired people virtually, right? So all that has changed. I mean, we really, all our five senses got to be on point now, right? Because you would never have met the person that you're interviewing, and you would have to, build rapport, right? As much as you hate the way you look on video and you don't know how it's going to come up, you know what? After a while, you're going to tell yourself, look, this is normal. So just go on and do the job, right? So I think the tip is, don't forget, even if it's virtually, don't forget to be who you are. If you're a fresh graduate or if you're applying for a job and attending virtual interviews, don't forget, to play the part, right? Speak the part, look the part, because the same respect that you kind of earn in a face-to-face interview, in a physical interview, would not have changed in a virtual interview, right? And therefore, don't forget your smile, your greeting, all that. Don't forget that. There's just so much. So many tips now, right, on that. So don't forget all that just because it's virtual. It doesn't mean that you should not maintain eye contact just because it's virtual, right? So I think my advice is, try, be who you are, try to be as genuine as you can, engage your interviewer, right? Maintain the eye contact and listen. I think listening is important. Listen to what the questions are and also prepare for the interview. Don't think that just because it's virtual, because like it or not, interviewers are already trained. Only the medium of interviewing has just changed. Nothing else has changed. The medium of interviewing is now just through, virtual, right? Video and whatnot, right? And there are companies I know of, they actually get people to video themselves and send in together with their resume. So I've heard of those as well, right? I see many nods, right? So yeah, so I think those old-fashioned adage and wisdom, I think honesty still holds. Build that rapport with your interviewer, be yourself, and show up with respect, right? Show up and dress up for whatever position you're applying for, dress up appropriately for that role. Yeah, those would be my advice.
Thank you, Chatting. Zaim, increased competition.
Yeah, it's interesting because like what you all just mentioned, right? Virtual platform, right? So TDCX, the last 7 months we onboarded 900 people virtually. Because we are in the CX industry, so we hire a lot of customer service agents and different native speakers like Korean, Thai, Vietnamese, and so on. And we are proud that because we have developed, we have a digital lab internally that developed the whole hiring platform. So Chai Peng just now mentioned that they can actually record their video and upload. So that's for our recruiter to have a preliminary assessment. So I think they'll go through their English test, their technical assessment all online before the recruiter will pre-screen and select them for a first level interview by recruiter and then subsequently team leader. And for the more senior levels, all of us have to go through a leadership quality gate where there's a 3-hour assessment virtually now, given case studies, role play, and so on. So things doesn't change. It's all on virtual. And our panel will assess our candidates based on the way they interact, the way they communicate, the values that they carry, the personality, and so on and so on and so forth, right? So as a candidate, I think it's important that we maintain that and make sure you're in the right venue as well. I just want to share that there was a candidate who was actually picking up a call using her mobile phone, but she was in a car, in a moving car. So it was a bit interesting just to share. So make sure that you're in the right place and in a quiet environment in order for you to perform your best in the interview.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Shapina,
Sorry.
I wanted to ask you, with increased competition, how can a candidate now stand out more?
Oh, like Chapping has mentioned just now, to me, whether is a whatever, the only things that have changed is just the medium. Other things status quo. In terms of how interviewer assess your quality of candidates, everything is status quo. Like any other physical meeting, the expectation is the same. It's just that instead of meeting physically, it is using a virtual medium.
Yeah.
I guess whatever that has been shared by Zaim and Chaiping, it's it's the right points. I mean that I don't think there are any other extraordinary points that we need to highlight just because we do it virtually. All the video assessment, online assessment, whatever assessment, it is still online. It's just that instead of meeting physically, it is virtual. That's all.
Yeah. Nigel, I'm sure you
Um, Sure. I think what Safina said, Taiping and Zain said is all relevant. Right? It's accurate. It's no different from a an actual interview, actual meeting. So it's just a medium, right? The only thing I can part off is to say, it's no different from a virtual environment. Do your research, practice. That's all you have to do, right? And that's how you will stand out with the rest of the candidates.
the old school advice always sticks, right? As in, because it's, we're all human. These values should stay with us no matter what, I think. And it should translate regardless of the platform as well. And it's our responsibility to find ways to do that. That's what I believe in. So totally agree that these are all platforms, and we should use it to our advantage. So I think all of you have been super helpful and super, it's been a very, very insightful discussion. Thank you so, so much. I hope to be able to connect with you in another panel or something else, because I think it's really interesting how the working world has now translated and moved, and it would be nice to actually check in again in a year or two and to see whether things have totally evolved, or in fact the future of work in the future might be something totally that is different, because things that we were imagining years ago are all happening now. So I was talking to my colleagues about the Jetsons, and they don't know what the Jetsons are because it's a totally different generation. But we're living it now, where he switches on the TV and he communicates, and it's exactly what's happening now. So I look forward to connecting with you again, and thank you so much to all the viewers. Also, you've given really, really cool comments. See you soon. Stay safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Nada.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
2, 3, 4. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Yeah, 2, 3, 4. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yes. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yes. Yeah, 2,